Hey there. So today in my live, what I want to talk to you about is this idea of no one prepares us for this stage of life. How are we supposed to know what we're doing in our 50s, our 60s, our 70s, and beyond? Sure, we see other people around us aging, but it's all new as we're experiencing it. It's all a new path to tread upon this changing body, the changing relationships, the changing connection to others and to who we think we are at this stage in life. So there's a few topics I'd really like to address. And I want to start with the one that I challenge this notion of retirement. So a lot of us are working towards this thing we're calling retirement. So we maybe have been in jobs for a long time or a series of jobs, and we're just kind of fed up. And so we've been told the story that we've been programmed to believe as we reach this certain age, and then we can just, stop working and find some kind of reprieve from all of that stuff and enter this world of retirement. So it's an interesting time and it's an interesting transition because there's a few things. Let me start with the sort of political analysis of this, if you will, the social analysis too. So retirement came at us at a period, post World War II when all this development was going on. There was a big movement towards collective welfare of all beings. Programs were being created, including a pension plan, both in the United States and Canada and other Western countries. And that was fed to us that you work to 65 and then you'll get some government money for your retirement. There were, in those days too, lots of corporate-y kind of pension plans, that sort of thing. Don't see as many of those anymore. Interesting. And so this idea of retirement got literally taught to us, programmed into us, that at this age we access these government funds and use your own retirement money as well. And then you just kind of settle into this aging thing. And for most of us, it kind of looked like a decline. Yeah, you weren't working anymore, but you were kind of sitting back, being a bit docile, and health may have started to be uh, implicated by all of that. That was what we saw growing up as younger people. Now I'm going to be 61 in a few days. I don't look anything like what I thought 61 was going to look like when I was in my 20s, for example. So retirement for me, yeah, I've left a job that I did for 25 years because I was ready to go. And yes, I access a pension from that job. But when people say, oh, you're retired, it kind of is annoying to me because it's like I left a job that I retired from, but I am not retired as I build this program, the Wisdom Trust. I'm doing a whole bunch of interesting and creative things. Some of it's generating income, some of it is out of passion. And I think that's what we need to be looking at rather than this notion of retirement. What is this next stage of life going to look like? What is the thing that's going to light us up post that job or series of jobs that transition into something new? And that can look like doing volunteer work, giving back kind of work, and other things, really. So we can be super creative at this stage in life. And we don't need to settle for this notion of, oh, I'm retired, so I do some gardening and I go on a couple trips a year. Well, that's all well and good, but what do you do with the rest of it, right? You still have, for many of us, we're going to live into our 90s, people. So if you retire at 60, 65, what the F are you going to be doing for 30 years, right? Like, let's figure this out collectively together. And I think it behooves us in terms of government and administration to also be looking at this as well. That's one issue. The other is the empty nest. So not all of us, I grew up as a single, or as an grew up as an adult, I've been single all of my life essentially. So my nest has always been empty. But for those of you who had families, you had kids, you raised kids together, and especially more in the recent decades where gay marriage, same-sex marriage became a thing, equal marriage, that you were raising families and such. Many were doing it before that too. But those kids leave, they go on, they start doing their own thing. And maybe then you and your partner are just kind of going, maybe your partner's gone too. Maybe it's a totally empty nest. And so what does that look like? And how do you identify who you are in that transition of no longer in this role of parent and provider, breadwinner, all of that stuff, to someone who's still a thriving person with lots of potential. That's what we need to be thinking about. So other things that occur are friendships. Friendships will often shift. I was going to use the word evolve, but it's not necessarily evolution, because we all change and shift in our own unique ways. And the thing about energy, it attracts, right? So if we're in university, we'll attract similar kind of peers, and then they become our friends because our energies are vibrating a certain way. We are attracted to each other. And then we go off and we start careers, and maybe some of those people end up doing something different, and things start to shift, and those relationships shift and change. That's also happening here at this stage. There's a few things going on. Some of us are withdrawing, doing less, and feeling more cocoony, which can be great, but it can also be problematic, because if we're cocooning too much, lethargy sets in, a heaviness sets in. We stop to thinking about things so creatively. We lose a little bit of our curiosity, and Netflix becomes our best friend. Nothing against Netflix. But there's a whole life to be lived, right? And then these bodies are changing as well. So we can't prevent that. Some of you are working pretty hard to prevent that. I see lots of men my age is just pumping it out at the gym and got their shirts off, showing it all in their Facebook groups, all of that. I love that stuff to a degree, because if you're so identified with the body, here's the thing: the body is going to die. Its role is to come to a certain point and then to start to deconstruct, to deteriorate. And that's what end of life stuff looks like. So yes, we can be strong, we can pump up our bodies, but we also have to recognize, we have to honor the aging process to a degree as well. So I'm not saying don't do anything. I love the idea of building muscle with age, because even scientifically now it's proven that muscle mass is a better determiner of longevity than body mass index, for example. So yay to those who are working out, but don't overdo it, right? And don't make that become the egoic thing or the narcissistic thing that becomes the driving force behind your life. Because we also want to be connecting at a deeper level, at a soul level, of finding out who and what we are at this stage in life. That's more than this body, that's more than these thoughts, that's more than these identities we've created in the past. And with that is another area, which is changing priorities. So, this is important, because we may not always recognize this. And what we may be trying to do is hold on to stuff from the past. We may find ourselves living in, largely gay communities where it's like business as usual. And yet there may be something inside of you that just feels a little misaligned. Well, because guess what? Maybe that business as usual isn't what your soul's yearning for. Maybe there's a deeper part of you that wants more, that wants different kinds of connections, or maybe fewer connections. Maybe it's more of an inner journey. But you can have that a whole range of things going on. But you have to understand that your priorities are necessarily going to shift and change. And we don't need to adhere to any kind of narrative around what that is. What I think we are benefited with and blessed with as gay people is we are so creative. So let's figure out what this aging process is going to look like. Let's figure out how we can build stronger communities, and let's figure out and have honest discussions about our priorities. They're not going to be monolithic, because we're all unique and beautiful, but we have to recognize that things are shifting and changing, and we need to get a little bit clearer, some of us, about what that's going to look like. So life isn't just happening to us, that we are an active agent in that shifting evolution of who we are. And in that, the last thing I want to touch on is this thing of identity. So, Pride Month has just passed us. Pride Month is usually considered June, right? I know where I am, the Pride event is coming up still, and it's July now that I'm sharing this. But I wanted to say that identity, shifts and changes. And so for some of us at my age, going to a Pride parade doesn't really have as much gravitas as maybe it did when I was younger. So the identity piece becomes something less about what's out there, the connecting to out there, and more about, well, who am I as a being? how is my shifting and evolution as a human on this planet who's closer to death than I am from birth, right? The reality of our mortality kind of sets in. And what do I want that identity to look like? I want to consciously be choosing, not again falling into some kind of, call it, I don't know, a gay cliche, right? Like we can do things our own and unique ways and be supportive of choices that others are making. So I think this identity bit is really, really key and crucial to do that deeper inquiry at this stage in life, because one of the things we don't want to do is sort of go through the road, the hamster wheel, if you will, of life, where we're sort of going through the motions, but not really consciously, not really diving a little bit deeper, maybe not doing some of that deeper self inquiry. Now, you may listen to this, you may have already shut off because you don't want to hear any of it, and that's cool. But if you're still listening to this, these are the types of conversations that we want to have in the Wisdom Trust, where we want to be prepared to discuss and examine, well, who are we becoming as elders? Because a lot of those folks who would be holding those places for us now, they're gone. The AIDS crisis wiped them out. And that's ridiculously hideous when we think about it, but it's the fact, it's the truth. And so we don't have a lot of models of what eldership looks like. And eldership's not just about those who have earned it through activism, right? Eldership can look like a lot of things. So what are we modeling? What are the stories we're sharing with our younger gay brethren? All of that stuff. So if you're interested in these kind of conversations, I encourage you to check out the Wisdom Trust. Love to meet you. Talk to you soon.